So our first item, B, the Citizens Forum. Do we have anybody that signed up to speak?
No, ma'am.
Right. Next, item C, discuss, consider, and take action on approval of the minutes from the October 12th, 2020 meeting. Did everybody have an opportunity to review those?
Yes, I make a motion that we accept the minutes.
I'll second that.
All right, we have a motion from Linda Childers and a second from David Morgan to approve the October minutes. All in favor, raise your hand. Okay. And that did pass unanimously. Item D, review year-to-date financial statements as of October 31st, 2020.
Yeah, so I'll just jump in here. Obviously, if you had a chance to look at their financials, not a whole lot to discuss. We did, in terms of revenue for October, we are running about 1% behind with 1 month in, which isn't really running behind when you're only 1 month in to the budget, but we should be about 8.3% in, and that shows at 7.3%. So as we discussed our October meeting, in terms of the year-end financials and the budget amendments that we did, we came in over budget. So it's unlikely that just to remind everybody, we're 2 months in the rears when it comes to revenue we receive. So this would be, well, October, September, August numbers. Okay, so it's unlikely that this is going to be a trend with just 1 month in, given where we ended the year, basically with the summer, July being our last month that we were in the rears when it comes to September revenue. So I'm not really worried too much about that. And obviously, when it comes to expenditures, we didn't have anything top A funded this month. We are. I'm still a little bit, just a little bit of confusion in terms of our transfers out and how we like to time those. If you remember, we've got for top A, our transfers out to the CIP fund for the project in Joshua Station, and at that $330,000 number, that would equate to a monthly budget transfer of 75 grand. So we just haven't done that yet. We will once we're still waiting, and I'll kind of dovetail with what we're going to talk about on the next item, but we're still waiting for TxDOT on the engineering approval of the engineering plans for that project. So once we get that, then you'll start seeing those transfers being made so we can get that over to the CIP fund to start paying for the engineering, and you'll start seeing things move pretty quickly when it comes to the bidding of the project and the timeline for that. So we're working very closely with the TRC as our partners, our private partners in this project, and the PD for that, the plan development, was approved by P&Z earlier last week, or I guess Monday. Where am I? Yeah, last Monday at the P&Z meeting, the plan development for that project, the Starbucks site. There's Darren. There will be individual projects that are being approved rather than the whole area there. So the P&Z approved the plan development for the Starbucks location, which is also going to be, some other retail spaces in that building, and that'll go before the council for their approval at next week's meeting. So once those things once the TxDOT thing gets approved, you'll start, like I said, you'll start seeing those transfers start happening, so we can get that money over to CIP. But other than that, not a whole lot going on financially in top A for October.
Okay.
Good evening, Darren.
Hey, Darren. So are there any other questions on the financial statements?
I don't have any.
I didn't have any.
I didn't either.
All right, Darren, we're on item E, if you want to take over from here. You're muted. Darren, I think you're muted.
Is there a chat?
No.
It doesn't show, Darren, it doesn't show you as muted on my end.
So maybe your speaker's muted or something.
That's what happened to me.
Okay, so so we'll go ahead with item E, which is discuss, consider, and possible action on new downtown economic development project.
Yeah, so this is just a revisitation of the project that we talked about last time. You guys had some questions before you kind of gave your blessing or green light on moving forward with this. Y'all had some questions in terms of commitment issues, for the lack of a better phrase, TxDOT's plans with the underpass, the railroad bypass project. We are in the process of I've engaged Pacheco Koch. You guys should recognize that name. Pacheco Koch helped us with our downtown revitalization master plan. They're doing the engineering on the TxDOT project that we just talked about. The 170, the left turn, head of left turn on 174. They're helping us with that in terms of engineering. TxDOT reached out to me through Kimley Horn, which is another engineering firm that TxDOT is using for the design of the railroad bypass. They reached out to me, I guess it was about 2 weeks ago today, with a slew of questions that, and please stop me, anybody please stop me if I've already told you this. I can't really remember if this came in before or after our last meeting, but back in July, they had reached out to me to submit quite a bit of data in terms of the overall economic impact of this new, what they're calling alternative alignment. I call it route, but they call it an alignment because they're realigning 917, what they're calling alternate alignment E, which basically goes right down 12th Street to right through right here, right here at right in the middle of our downtown, where Main and 12th Street. We obviously don't appreciate that consideration of that route. We prefer the public, what the public preferred in the public meeting back in 2017, which is a more southern orientation that kind of goes below 14th Street and then curves back north to tie into 174 at the light there at the main intersection. If you remember, the whole reason they're going through this is because when they started doing the environmental review for the project, there's what they call it's what they consider a historical asset at the corner of Main and 917. They're in the southwest corner. The owner has actually expressed interest in moving that home and maybe even donating it to the Johnson County Historical Society to get it out of the way. That remains to be seen, but anyway, that's where we're at now in terms of why they're looking at this new alternate alignment. So they asked me to send them some information back in the summer of the economic impact of the new development that we've had going on, the current plans that we had back in, that was happening back in the summer, the future plans, which we're now talking about, and submitted, the total public investment, the total private investment, both what had already been put on the ground and what had been planned. And then I sent them a copy of our downtown revitalization master plan to give them a sense of what we were trying to do downtown. 3 months later, after hearing nothing from them, 3 months later, they sent me an email with about a dozen new questions, some, frankly, that were answered in the previous email and in the downtown revitalization plan. And so the onus is now on the city to answer all these questions for them so they can then schedule the next public meeting. We were supposed to have this public meeting back at the first of the year. The environmental review and obviously COVID put a delay on all that stuff. So now they've kind of put the burden on us to provide more information before they make the final decision. So I've engaged Pacheco Koch to help me with that because a lot of it is engineering questions that we don't have the expertise in-house to do. And with Pacheco Koch being intimately involved in the downtown revitalization a plan. I asked them to help me out on that. So they're going to be, I should be getting that report sometime this week. And we're going to review that and send that off to TxDOT. Hopefully that gets them off a high center. So the question from the board last time was a couple of things. But the main thing was the financial responsibility that we would have. If you remember in the context of this project, it's a public-private partnership where the developer or the landowner/developer there that now owns the property there at the northeast corner of 12th and Main has expressed interest in us helping to provide public parking in the area on the lot that we have across the alleyway, which is right across from City Hall. And the issue there is the developer funding those improvements in an effort to facilitate that project, to get it on the ground a lot quicker, because obviously we would have to go through the budgeting process and the capital improvement planning process. So if we identify the funding ahead of time, we can get that process started a lot sooner. So the question, ultimately was, if we do this, what happens if TxDOT comes in and then wipes us all out, right? So after going back and forth with the city attorney and doing some more research on how the procurement of the existing properties or displacements is what TxDOT calls them. Because if they come down 12th Street, they're going to be wiping out the police department and City Hall, our parking, our potential parking area, and obviously the private development that's there too. So in essence, I've already sent Mr. Rumfeld some draft language, and I put draft really big on the email. I sent that over to Miranda, and she followed through with sent that through Robbie, and had some discussions with him on some of the draft language. Typically speaking, Chapter 380 agreements are really useful, and one of the few tools we have to enter into these types of agreements where we offer economic development incentives. If you remember, Type A entered into this exact agreement with TRC. That's the project we're doing in Joshua Station. And in a technical legal aspect, it's not so much the Type A they entered into the agreement, but Type A obviously, with it being Type A's land, obviously was instrumental in that agreement. So ultimately, the Type A cannot legally enter into a 380 agreement. The city it will, in terms of if you want to look at it, the city, Type A, Type B, the cities is one that are legally allowed to enter those agreements. So if and when you guys give your blessing on using Type A's land, then now we'll take that to the city council and get their blessing on that 380. Now, right now, it's very similar to what we have on Joshua Station, is I have draft language that would, in essence, pay or reimburse the developer for these public parking improvements via sales tax that is generated from the new businesses that it's meant to serve, right? So, theoretically, he puts a retail spot or retail building there on the corner, and since it's going to be facilitating this parking would be for the facilitation of that project. The revenues produced by that specific property would then the city would use to reimburse him until he's paid back. So the question, that's still going to be a negotiation thing with the developer, but it's exactly what we did with TRC. Now with TRC, what we also did, it's a little bit more complicated, some more moving parts there. But we did, we had the sales tax reimbursement, we had the property tax abatement, and obviously we put up the land as an incentive to develop that. So in this case, so far, we're not really talking about any type of property tax abatements. But so we're in the very baby stages, if you will, of what that 380 will say. So in essence, if we assume a project cost of $175K, so $175,000 is what we, if you remember last time, the developer submitted submitted kind of a quote for that, and obviously we would do our own due diligence and it would need to be engineered, and we'll have the more detailed cost estimate of the probable cost of construction. But if we assume that $175,000, okay, if we, how the 380, whatever we end up landing on in terms of the 380 and how the developer gets reimbursed, will determine, right now I've got it at 10 years, right? Because you can imagine if it's $175,000 and the sales tax created by the new business going into this retail space, or businesses, depending on how they do it, it might at 2%, right? It's 2% sales tax. That's going to take a minute to pay him back. So we might have to be kind of creative in how we put that together. So if we drop, per se, if the developer drops 175,000 into this potential 175,000 into this project, and then we're 2 years in, 3 years in, and the TxDOT decides, yes, we're coming down 12th Street. There goes our asset. There goes the business that is providing the revenue for us to provide the reimbursement, right? So after talking to the city attorney, doing some research through TxDOT's procurement process, when it's all said and done, that property would now be what's considered a revenue producing property. So it wouldn't just be vacant land anymore, because it's being used to facilitate the private development in downtown. So if and when TxDOT comes through downtown and down 12th Street, we wouldn't be going in for fair market value for just a lot. We would be going in, our parking lot rather. We would be going in and asking for reimbursement for that, plus additional value because of the facilitation of the revenue producing properties downtown. So it's very possible, they'll not guaranteed, there'll be a thing between the city and TxDOT that when it's all said and done, we ask for $180,000, $200,000 for that lot. Now whether we get it, that's TxDOT doesn't actually get to decide that per se. There's marketing and real estate transaction calculations that happen that they have to follow per state regulations, but it wouldn't just be for the parking lot. It's likely we would actually get more back from that because of the loss in revenue that it was meant to facilitate. So if we're paying back the developer, sales tax every year up to that 175, and TxDOT comes and wipes us out, we would then use the revenue of the payment for that procurement from TxDOT. We would then use that to then turn around and make the developer whole on the cost, for the cost of the construction. So at the end of the day, he gets paid back, and we're not really on the hook for anything that we weren't going to be on the hook for already. So that's kind of hopefully it's not too long of an answer, but all in all, what it really comes down to is the timing and source of that reimbursement. It's either going to be sales tax, as long as there's properties, users or lessees in that building, and how long it takes. Typically what we see in these type of developments or development agreements is it may not have a term. With one building, it's likely that if I'm Mr. Rumsfeld was not really very accommodating, or not accommodating, that's not the right word, don't get me wrong. He didn't really like the first draft, if you will, in terms of, kind of our brainstorm and how we, set up that reimbursement. It's likely that he has a different view of that. I have not heard back from him. Miranda had asked for him to send, something back in writing, basically a reply to the email on what his idea would be, but we have not heard back from Mr. Rumsfeld at this point. So maybe there's not a term, maybe it's just we paid, he gets reimbursed via sales tax until he's paid back. On a TRC deal, there usually is a term, because you want to incentivize them to, find a leasee as soon as possible to start creating revenue so they can get paid back, right? That's what we did with TRC. Now, granted, he'd still, even if there wasn't a term like this 10 years or 175 grand, whichever comes first, he's still, even if there's no term, he's still going to want to get somebody in there, because he's still going to be out 175 grand, right? So that's nothing to sneeze at. So he's going to want to get somebody in there as soon as possible, and not only just anybody, but somebody that's going to, projected to bring in or create more revenue faster than you may think. So there's an incentive there, and that's why we draft these agreements the way we do. It's not just we'll pay you back. It's no, here's what you've got to do to get paid back. We appreciate you're going to do these improvements for us, but in exchange, here's why we're doing it. And so we incentivizes that, them to get somebody in there as fast as possible. Because we saw this in other areas of the downtown area. We made some, parking improvements, and then it was 2 years, 3 years before anybody was in those buildings. And so before we, make that plus some in terms of the commitment, we want to make sure that, we're going to have somebody in there pretty quick, and this is how we do that. So anyway, I'll stop talking now.
I'm still, I don't know, I'm still kind of on the fence. I mean, I'm torn both ways. I mean, I want to encourage, what Rumpelt is doing as far as the downtown development, because I do appreciate what he's putting into it and what he's, I mean, it's a great value, but on the other hand, you're making a decision on a gamble with taxpayers' money, and what type of risk do we really want to put into that, not knowing what TxDOT's going to do. And we ultimately don't know what that reimbursement amount would be. So there is no guarantee on that. And, my personal opinion is we have to look at what our financial responsibility is to the taxpayers, on that money. And what, I mean, even though I do want to acknowledge, the value of what Rumpelt is putting into the downtown. So you said last time, you said that there was the conversation of possibly just selling him the property. Did he mention that, or has he mentioned any interest in that possible route, or was that just an option?
That's an option we put before him, because, a lot of it was about timing,
Right.
The faster we can get parking there, the more marketable those lease spots would be. Obviously, with the bidding rules and the timetable we have to follow per state regulations, it's not going to be as quick as he prefers. And so we did say, well, if you want to expedite that, we can put this up for. We would obviously have to put it up for bid. The land, public land, we have to put it up for bid. But if he wants to expedite that, the easiest way to do that is to buy the land from us, and then he can.
Did he have a response
He
to
can pay
that?
whatever he wants to. He was not. Yeah, he was not. He wasn't.
Love it.
The other part of that is, and I think we talked about this a little bit last time. We had talked about, whether we sell it to him, it becomes private parking, or we keep it public parking.
Right.
And his one of his things was making sure that the parking was available for those businesses. And I said, well, one of the ways you can segregate that and make it to where it's restricted is by it being private property. And then I remember us talking about the last time we felt like, or the board felt like it was probably be more beneficial to the community if we kept that public parking, and the entire downtown area was going to be able to use that. So whether that's people needing to park across the street for City Hall, or obviously people using all the businesses in the downtown area. But yeah, he wasn't really, that wasn't really attractive to him in terms of buying it from us.
I have a question. When we originally purchased those lots and those houses, for some reason I'm thinking the amount $90,000. I don't know what we actually paid for it. And then I know we had to pay to have those houses removed. Could you find out what we actually have invested in that property and what the current value is?
Sure.
And do we have any other property downtown that would be another option that's not at risk of being taken out by the TxDOT project?
No, unfortunately, other than the city properties that have city facilities on them, we don't have any city-owned vacant properties, or even any city-owned properties that would facilitate any type of development. That maybe have some. We have slivers of stuff. We have right of way. We've got that sort of thing, but nothing that would be an alternative to what we're talking about here.
And when do you think, and I know that there's no guarantee, but when do you think you'll hear something back from TxDOT on a better idea of what they're looking at?
Well, I suspect that is really going to be determined by how quickly we get these answers to them that Pacheco Coke's helping out with. But it was given where we're at in the year, and holidays for some reason TxDOT. I mean, everybody kind of slows down on their holidays, but TxDOT, man, they just completely shut down. It's very hard to get. We're probably looking at well after the first of the year before they even look at another public meeting. So we might know something by the end of the year in terms of the route that they decide on, and assuming I can get these answers in quickly and that gets reviewed and turned around fairly, in a reasonable time frame. But it's, we're probably looking. I would probably say after the first of the year is when we'll know, and then there'll be another public meeting they'll have to schedule, and hopefully, we get to some type of back to normalcy when it comes as it pertains to the COVID issue, and we're able to actually have a public meeting that's not have to be virtual, and people can come, check out that stuff. But I am, Linda, right now I am looking up that property to see what the value of it is. I want to say you're right in terms of the total investment we had on it. The purchase of the lot plus moving those houses. What I want to say was around 80 to 90 grand. When I first started looking at this. So let's see.
Josh, do you have drawings of the overpass project, the two alternatives that you're talking about?
A drawing?
Do you have any site drawings of that? Or does TxDOT have drawings, or where?
Like a map of the route?
Yes.
I do. Let me see if I can find that real quick. Linda, on the, it's not showing me the value of that because it's public property right now. It's not the website is not giving me it's exempt. So when it shows the improvement state codes and the things we look at for appraised values on the appraisal district website, it just shows exempt, and so there's no dollar amounts applied for that. But in terms of let me see if I can get, where did I put that? If I can find it as I'm looking for this. Oops. Let's see. How is it? I think I can, if this is the one I'm looking for, I can share my screen. Takes a minute for it to open these files, so pardon me. Okay, I'm gonna see if I can do this. Can everybody see that?
Yes,
Oh, yeah,
I see your files.
yeah.
Yeah, I see your list of files.
But you're not seeing the, let's see.
You shared the wrong screen.
Well, that's the one that, okay, there we go. Sorry.
There we go.
Can you see it now?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so in that big red circle, I obviously was off on that. That's not the, well, no, I'm not off on that. So we're looking at, so the alternative B is the city preferred, and when this terms, when I say city, I mean the community as well. That's the route the community chose as well. And as you can see, it keeps our downtown area intact. This alternative or alternate misspelling alternate D/E either way, and the difference between the D and the E is just an overpass versus an underpass. At this point, whether it's B or E, it's going to be an underpass. That's our understanding from TxDOT, because we didn't want an overpass because of a big monstrosity basically cutting the downtown area in half, visually and aesthetically. But as you can see, just following that yellow path, it just goes right through downtown. So the amount of now I drew in the yellow But the alternate alignment B, you can see how wide that is given the amount of the purple border. When it comes, that's the extent of the right of way. So if you kind of superimpose the green route onto the city street of 12th Street, you can just see how wide it is compared to the city street. So it's going to take up, the amount of right of way they're going to have to get to do this is going to wipe out. It's probably going to take out, I suspect, the animal control building, which is, right when it kind of veers north until it lines up with 12th Street. It'll probably take that out, takes out the PD, the entire basically intersection for about, the entire block on all four sides or all four corners, going, and then of course going to the east. So yeah, David, that's kind of what we're looking at. We're trying to get TxDOT to stay in the green. The green is good, yellow is bad in this case.
Okay.
Does anybody else have any opinions on this?
Well, I had one other question, and if we purchased it for just say 90,000, that got the 2 lots and got the houses removed. Did I understand you to say to do the parking lot was going to be 175,000?
That's what we're projecting. We actually haven't had an engineer look at that probable cost of construction, but that's what Robbie sent us. It was about 171 and change.
Okay, so let's just say 171. Then with what we have in it and what we're going to put in it to do the parking, we're going to be committed to over $260,000.
Well, the interesting I see what you're doing there. Unfortunately, that's not public property. Is not for all intents and purposes, that $90,000 is gone. Okay, because the value of the land is going to be whatever we could get for it. It is not necessarily the fact that because we spent $90,000 on it, that the lot itself is valued at $90,000.
No, but I'm just talking about the expense that we will have incurred.
Well, sure, yeah. Whenever we incurred that, yeah, I guess so. That's true.
So,
but we're actually not going to be in it for the 175.
Okay.
Initially.
Right.
I mean, eventually that's what we'll be paying him back, or whatever that amount ends up being.
Right, but so I guess it kind of depends on how you look at that. So if the incentive agreement or the development agreement goes through as what is imagined, we're going to be paying him back from revenues we wouldn't otherwise have anyway. Mm-hmm. So right. it's I don't really view it as I see that as a probably a net gain, because if you think about how the ripple effect it has in downtown, right? So if we just solely look at the new development as where that revenue is created, where it's produced, and that is the one sole site, it stands to reason that if we have additional parking, the other businesses in the area are going to benefit from that, and will drive up sales tax revenue. So I really actually see this as a net gain for the top A. We're really it wouldn't be top A's money, segregated to top A's money, but in terms of sales tax revenue, we would be getting that half a penny back, or half a penny back. If you discount what we're going to be getting from the new development and extrapolate that out to the other businesses benefiting from this, we're not going to be actually in it for that much, but certainly at the beginning we won't be in it for 260 grand. But I guess it just kind of depends on how you look at how much financial responsibility we have in it. Maybe that's a way to look at it.
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm looking at. This is probably more thought than I've given anything else that I've bought or sold. But we're talking about other people's money.
Exactly.
but
That's
we've-
where I keep coming back to. And
Yeah. But we've already spent roughly 90,000. And if we go in as the city and build out this parking lot for 171, we will, I know we should get some of it back, but initially we will have 261. So if TxDOT comes through and says, okay, we're going to go right through all of this area, how much of that 261 do you think we would get back from TxDOT?
And there's no way to know that. That's the problem.
Because they're not going to look at the money we spent to purchase it and to move the
Right.
homes.
They're going to look at fair market value, and then we may be able to come in with some argument to get a little bit of wiggle room, but there's no guarantee.
Mhm.
I mean, the way that I'm leaning, I mean, I like the idea of the project. I really, really do. But my personal opinion is that we table it until we get a definitive answer from TxDOT. But if Rumfield is interested in doing something sooner rather than later, then we entertain the idea of selling the property outright and letting him go at it. But personally, I think I just don't think that we can make a responsible decision until we know what TxDOT is going to do. And that's just my opinion.
Well, and on the other side, Josh, you've always said you've got to spend money to make money. Right?
Oh yeah, and actually, when we were talking about the money that Type A's put into this property already, and of course, that was before I got here. So that property has been sitting there stagnant, doing nothing.
Yes.
We're not getting any property tax revenue off of it. It's basically been a blank piece of land with producing nothing for the last 6 years. So I think that should be a factor. Like I think, frankly, it's one of the reasons any development corporation buys land to begin with, is so eventually you turn it over, you get something out of it, and it starts producing something.
Right.
I will say, again, this is probably a philosophical question in terms of the taxpayers' money, right? So typically, when we're talking about taxpayer money, we're talking, we typically talk about property taxes, right? But in this case, when you talk about sales tax, you're obviously talking about a lot of monies we're receiving people who don't even live here. Anybody who buys anything in the city, is contributing to our sales tax revenue. So there's I think there's a lot of factors that go into here and what it means to be good stewards of the revenues we have. And when it comes to the sales tax stuff, we can only spend that money on specific things to begin with. So I think I think there's a point to be made to, do we want to make the investment until we know what TxDOT's going to do, or do we try to make something happen now and then, again, like Shelley's already indicated, what we talked about right now is, hope we get that money back to be able to pay back the Mr. Rumfield for the improvements he makes. There's just no, when it's all said and done, if that parking lot goes in, and given the arguments that we talked about earlier about it being a revenue producing property, I think it's highly unlikely we don't get most, if not all, of that back. But there's no guarantee. All these homes along either one of these routes that are being displaced, I think it's going to be highly unlikely these people get all the money they think they should be getting for the structures that the TxDOT's going to have to take down, versus what the market says, the fair market value for those properties will be.
Mhm.
But,
Plus, those lots, I'm going to interrupt for just a minute. Those lots go back to just a little bit north of where your red arrow is, right?
right.
Yeah. So there's no way it's going to take out all of those lots.
Well, yeah, so it won't take the entire lot, but we also have to keep in mind that we're not going to be building right up to the edge of that right of way anyway. So, you know, you're looking at, if you kind of want to if everybody kind of gets an orientation, you can kind of see on here the property lines right in the purple. See the purple lines that are kind of boarding stuff. So if you look at the red arrow, there's a bold purple line right to the north of that. That's the lot. That's the extent of what we're talking about. So you're probably looking at the right of way for this. If it's to follow 12th Street, if you just take this green route and, you know, like I say, superimpose it upon 12th Street, you look with the right of way, you're looking at it, you know, taking out probably about a third of that lot. And so you're probably going to be left with about a third on the north end even being developable anyway if they end up going that route. But then it's going to depend on what do we do with it at that point? Is it even developable? Can we even put anything on, you know, the rest of that lot? Or is it just turned into a green space because nothing can go on there? You know, these are all things that'll, you know, once the alignment is decided, you know, we'll obviously have to come back to if we're going to wait on making a decision.
Well, I think, you know, fundamentally, parking availability is key to any kind of
Right.
area, any kind of business, any kind of activity, right? There's no parking. And so for us to already have a piece of property that can be parking, if we didn't own this and we were looking at trying to put parking in somewhere, we couldn't do it as cheap as we're talking about doing it now.
Right.
You know, so I'm fine with tabling it till if we can buy some time to try to get an idea of what TxDOT's going to do. But my gut feeling is I'd rather not sell it and have it be a private parking lot. I'd rather it be, you know, city parking lot for whatever development down the road.
Yeah, that's my ultimate preference, but I just personally, I would rather wait until at least maybe like January and see if you have any additional information
Yeah.
to make a more informed decision.
I have to agree with that.
So just so we're all on the same page, so we're gonna, I guess, for all intents and purposes, table this evening on any type of decision. Wait to see if and when TxDOT or whenever TxDOT has an answer. We know what route they're going to take, and then we'll have to come back to the discussion of if they come down 12th Street, are we going to make an investment? Right. So.
Right, but if they make that decision, will we then be able to get a better idea as far as what the right of way would possibly look like, and then what would then what are our options to develop? So, like you said, you're assuming, you know, 1/3, so have somebody kind of look at it and see what's a realistic option to minimize what would happen. You know, maybe we could just plan around that to the, you know, the best of their predictive ability, and then go from there. So.
And another thing that I'm kind of wondering, as far as contingency plans, the city, what are we thinking we're going to do as far as a new police, all the new municipal, if they wipe that out, what's our option? What's our plan?
Well, that's what they're asking. You know, we have a downtown revitalization plan, and a lot of that assumes that we move these buildings, right? At some point, the city services get out of the heart of this intersection and kind of get moved kind of out of the way to facilitate more product development here. So they asked me the very same thing, and that list of questions they sent me is, what is our plan and how much it's going to cost? The problem is because we've been waiting on TxDOT to decide what they're going to do. We haven't spent the money to try to develop any of those plans. I mean, it's going to cost me $10,000 just to get the engineering, because you got to do the engineering first because of the public improvements of what it's going to cost us to build these facilities. We also have something that, you know, I was hoping to get into the budget this year but couldn't quite fit in, was a facilities assessment. So, you know, what we're going to need, because we wouldn't just build to replace what we have, we would build to accommodate our future growth as well. So right now, the contingency is the downtown plan, but we're not going to, you know, talking about waiting on making a financial decision. We've decided not to move forward with any of that stuff until we know what TxDOT's going to do either. So we're all kind of just kind of waiting, you know, kind of in limbo here until the tech shop decides what they're going to do.
Okay.
So do we need to formally table this?
Yeah. So the way this works, well, no, I mean, yeah, I would, you know, I guess somebody would need to make a motion to, well, no, we just wouldn't act on it, Shelley. So there's no action. And then if you guys, whenever I do have more information and we have more concrete answers from TxDOT, then we can just put it on a future agenda. I think we're free to do that.
Okay. And as far as, I mean, and as far as, you know, going back to Miranda and to Rumfold, I mean, you know, we like the idea, but we've just got to get a little bit more confidence on what our true risk is.
Okay.
All right. Anything else on E? All right. Next item, future agenda items, requests by directors to be on the next agenda. Do we have anything?
I don't.
I don't.
I don't.
Nope.
All right. Then 7:21 p.m. we will adjourn.
Right. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.